Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all doing well. I know I am doing a lot better. So let's get straight into this. There's a lot to cover and a lot to talk about. You kind of can tell given the thumbnail what I'm about to talk about. Of course, you can be playing video games or doing some other unimportant things rather than learning exactly what's going on in the stock market. We're going to go over the setup, we're going to go over the momentum, and we're going to go over the predicted directionality. So you better stay with me for the following 10 minutes and you'll know exactly where we're headed and why so. Now, of course, we are looking as always at the S&P 500, as you guys can tell, our regular kind of setup. Now, the 5 minutes, as you can tell, right now is a mixture of the forces. It's not bullish nor bearish, while we're skipping the 1 minute simply because it's not all that important. The 1 minute right now is pointing more so downwards, but it will flip over and change multiple times. Ignore the black lines for now for a minute. Those are just markings that will be clear when we expand and zoom out a little bit more so basically you're seeing the 1 minute we are moving downwards within this channel, potentially retesting 7501 right there, 0.25. We've tested this level a couple of times, 7507. Acknowledge these levels. The channel currently is flat, as you can see, roughly flat with a slight inkling of an upwards trend of appreciation, although we have our bounds on the upper end. We have 7527.36. Now, as you can tell on the 5 minutes, as we just said, it appears to be that we are having this mixture, and so given that, it appears to be that we're potentially going to retest that 7527 again. So in other words, what we can see from the 5 minutes and the 1 minute is another potential retest of that level, or maybe the median that we're closer to, because that median still plays a role. Now, as I warned the other day, that we will see the price action moving, at least if somewhat, into the range of the gap that was generated around the 25th, 26th. Right now we are seeing more so tamed price action, but let's see where we're headed within the following hours or so, given how the trading session just begun. On the 30 minutes, in fact, we are a lot more bearish. Again, the mixture of the reason being we are above the 50 range, and so we are objectively bullish, but in bearish, but in bullish territory. And so we're kind of going to get a mixture, which does come in more so confirmation of that wedge-like formation, or another potential retest of this level, or 7534.99, referring to this level, pardon me for having a brain fart there for a second. Now, if we look at the 45 minutes, it appears to be that now we have a little bit of a clearer structure. We are both bearish and we are below the 50, far more indicative of a downwards directionality, right? So pay attention. This is where things become a little bit more interesting. I've warned just a week ago or so, what was it? No, well, no, more so. At this point, it's 2 weeks ago that I made the clear warning about the market tsunami coming in and we're all effed and all that wonderful stuff. Shout out to the new community members who've joined following these videos. And unfortunately, both of these videos, of course, did not do all that well as some of my other more interesting videos. Some people would consider, that goes into the thousands. Unfortunately, people don't really like the sentiment and the narrative of the price action taking a severe downtrend, and don't really tend to believe it. But that's the reason why we're here. I'm here to show you exactly the signals and the signs that are pointing out that we are actually, if you zoom out, in a larger head and shoulders like formation, and right now we're moving through arguably the head itself, the peak of it. We have equal potential support and resistance levels that will be retested on the downtrend, which we will see in a minute or so. How are they clear? How is it clear that we're going to be seeing these behaviors of the down sort of a pull towards the downside? Why it's far more likely than not. And something that I really want to clarify, that I know many people misread and misunderstood what I was saying, and are thinking that the the tsunami I was referring to are those intermediatory waves that we have had in the last couple of days and that tiny move downwards. No, no, no. The tsunami I'm referring to is the overall structure of the head and shoulders, which is about to lead us all the way to 6100. Now, those who imagine this to be a singular movement kind of like behavior, no, that's going to be a gradual step by step and have many stages to it. Some of them will be in fact corrective. In fact, I've highlighted right here, as you now can see on the screen, potential areas of entanglement retest that we will have on the way down. But the main reason that I'm thinking this overall structure is a head and shoulders and we're headed into a severe downwards trend is part of that overall structure that we've been moving through in the past year or so, if you will. In fact, when we were still moving sideways, I was warning that we will have a severe downtrend, and probably the only one around, as far as I know, right here when the downtrend actually played out as expected, when most commonly perceived bulls were becoming more bearish and now becoming poisoned, if you will, by the actual active behavior, kind of the way they perceive it as we've been going down and we're going to go down. And so these very same bulls became quite bearish, if you guys remember. And in fact, if you guys scroll and watch my videos again, those from several months ago, I started the videos by saying, you know, I hate to be the voice of reason for the bulls and so on, because eventually they are the same ones who tend to ignore my warnings when I warn about the downtrend, because in their mind the market always goes up and so on and so on. And so right here, again, relying on the very same technical tools. Those who don't understand, technical tools are based in, they're not black magic, they're very highly mathematical systems and structures that are generated by the market itself, cyclical, repetitive, highly accurate. And in fact, those who know the methodology and these various rules and systems can identify the cyclicality and how accurate the cyclicality is, and by doing so can predict to some extent what the price action is about to do, what the setup is indicating and signaling that we're about to move into. Pardon me, feeling a little bit parched. I hope you guys have your coffee as well. Now, so let's transition to the larger time frames at which I argue that we have the more visible signals and the reasons to be worried and identify that the price action is about to become quite bearish in the following session, something that I've been warning, in fact, at this point, as you can see, for about 2 weeks. And the momentum actually has been fading since this entire movement and rally. It's been fading and we've been moving sideways. I know it's quite annoying. Some people like to make memes. It's like, oh, bro, I figured out the channel or the signal, whatever, and kind of, you know, make fun of charts that are full of stuff. You don't have to focus on everything simultaneously, but rather what is being spoken about. And I know it's difficult for some people because they don't know what they're looking at, which is, again, why I highly recommend joining my community and learning about technical analysis. In fact, joining the not just the Patreon, but rather the academy itself, the one-on-one academy, where I tutor you one-on-one on all these rules, systems, methodologies, everything, pretty much everything you need to become your own independent analyst and not rely on other, you know, talking heads. And in fact, you can understand when people do talk about technical analysis, you can understand it better. So definitely do join my community, especially right now while it is still discounted. Here are the prices, only $10 a month if you want to join the basic, and $90 if you want to join the full. And if you want to join the academy, right now, actually until this month ends, it is $4,000 for me to go through with you throughout an entire library of lessons and actually teach you step by step how you become your own analyst and how you analyze the setups and understand the very same things I'm signaling. Of course, as always, shout out to my community members to whom I presented all these things ahead of time. As always, since every day I pretty much show up and post images of various charts, explain where we're headed. As you can see, these things, the very same analysis I'm presenting to you right now was already presented yesterday with some voice bites explaining to my members what exactly do I mean, how do I expect things to play out, and so on and so on, of course. Now, you are highly recommended to join and you will be part of the community. Now, let's go back to our chart. Now, the chart, if you want to pay attention right here on the 4 hours, things become a little bit more sketchy. And we have, although technically we are in bullish territory, we're above the 80. You can use the overlay I have set up for you right above me that explains how stochastic RSI works, how it functions, and how you can use it to read the directionality, the momentum that is being generated in one or another direction. We have only two, pretty much. And of course, we can move sideways temporarily. So as you can see on the 4 hours, we already are about to shift over and become bearish. And once we do become bearish, the price action and this momentum will start tugging and pulling downwards. So already on the 4 hours, which is far more indicative of near-term price action, we're talking about the following second half of this session and potentially tomorrow, and maybe even looking into Monday. But more so, if we want to be smarter and look slightly further out, which does limit what we can see on the shorter end, on the nearer end, but what we can see on the farther end, and that indicates that at least we in fact are still within bearish territory, that is below 50, as you can see, and we are about to transition, or at least we have some inclination and indication that the momentum here is about to shift over, cross over, and once it does and gives way to the dominance of the red line, we then of course become more bearish dominant. Now, the really scary bit that indicates for us, which the reason why you're here for, to see Greg, where is that indication that we're about to have a significant major downtrend? In fact, how are you able to point out the so-called precise area or range to which we're about to drop to? Well, quite simply so, because that very range is about to be our potential neckline, because as you can tell, what we're making here is a larger head and shoulders structure, a harmonic pattern. But Greg, haven't you just showed us one smaller internally? Yes. In fact, that's kind of how the overall structure functions, that we have multiple head and shoulders structures within the major larger one. What you want to pay attention, in my mind, my humble opinion, is to the larger one, which is far more indicative of a major low. And as we know that the downtrend is oftentimes far more rapid than what we have on the front end, if you will, on the uptrend. We can demolish and literally destroy levels and price levels that were generated throughout months and months and months, or weeks or weeks or weeks, and then demolish them within 1/10 of the time. Basically, if this took us, I don't know, 8 weeks to make, we can break it within about 2 or 3. So, and we guys have seen that before, and the reason that we suspect that this is exactly what's about to happen is simply how high we have been and have squeezed our bullish momentum. Currently, both are at the very same strength. So basically, when we're looking at our monthlies, this is where we're going to identify the potential indication of where we're about to continue, whether we are about to break higher or are we about to break lower, simply because the momentum is indicating the fade away of the bullish strength, the bullish momentum, the bullish force that was generated in the recent sessions is fading away, and thus giving way to our bearish momentum. And once our bearish momentum kicks in, naturally we start seeing a breakdown in the price action. So let's see what we can see right there. 2 weeks, of course, there are different structures, but arguably we want to look at our monthly. Our monthly is a bit worrisome. We are seeing potential convergence, and this may be indicative of more bullish price action once this green line takes dominance. But remember, what did we say? The more inner workings of the current time frame are becoming more and more bearish and indicative of a downtrend. And so, until we actually crossed over, because of our directionality and cyclicality that play a major role in how this is about to play out, and some of you even know about the channels and their importance, and how when we do end up at the top of the channel, we end up shifting over and moving downwards to the bottom. And if we right now look at where our bottom is, now you can kind of get my squiggles a little bit better. Maybe on the weekly I should have shown you. all this noise and all these drawings try to indicate that what we're about to have is a significant drawdown to our neckline, relying on our support levels. You can see these blue, the blue line rather, the blue line is actually made out of two parallel, very near-term lines, and the dotted line, those are the support and resistance levels that already played out multiple times before and were generated. In fact, if you pay attention around November, October 2025, where that's when they were still tested and generated, you can kind of see them through the noise. Let me remove that so you can see the two blue lines being tested right here. In fact, acknowledged right here as well, right here and right here. Around October 25, as you can see on the bottom, November 25, and again December 25, and again December 25, and now when we actually had a significant drawdown just recently, when generating the left side of the neckline, these two very same levels actually played a major role right here at around 6,300 as well. Of course, I can show you far clearer because the price action is a lot more condensed and it's more difficult to see. But if you pay attention right there, right now, you will be able to see clearly how that diagonal level played a major role right here, right here, right here, multiple times whenever we got entangled or remotely close enough to it to be retested. And again, as I've just mentioned, right here, just recently around March 2026. So right now what we're building, basically what we're seeing the market or the price action is generating, and I warned you about all these gaps will get closed. The market usually does not behave this way unless it's planning to go and pass by these levels again. And given our current structure and where we're at and the fading away bullish momentum, and far more indicative of bearish price action, it's safe to assume, especially for example, a good example would be the 2 weeks, where you can actually see the candlesticks are shrinking, meaning our momentum or ability to generate a more significant move to the upside is fading and fading and fading to the point where all the force we have in the system right now is not generating enough to make more than this hammer-like candlestick, or maybe even a doji. We'll see. Bottom line, what this is very indicative is the very same thing we're seeing on the momentum side of things, how our momentum is fading away, is about to cross over and break down. And as you can tell, these processes take a handful of weeks, because every candlestick here representing 2 weeks right now, basically. So imagine that if within a framework of 4 weeks, right, which is merely 2 candles, we break down, and that's a very rapid sort of behavior, yes, and that's how we often see the price action draw down very, very fast, very, very quickly and strong. And so I would argue that I was warning throughout the entire peak of the head structure, which has lasted through the last couple of weeks, as I was saying, and warning that the signals are the warning lights and the signals are there, that the price action is about to have a major drawdown. And so this is, consider this, I wouldn't call this even a final warning as much as just kind of an acknowledgement again, and revisiting that very same thesis, and revisiting the very signals and indicators that are pointing down towards a correction. Now, I kept this for last, the 3-week structure, which is still bullish, and that's why I wouldn't hurry and think that once you end and watch this video, the market will start dropping the very same second. No, that's the whole idea. That what I'm doing here in my channel is allowing you to have some directionality before it happens, because otherwise, if I will start telling you the market is dropping when it will start dropping, well, thank you, but I have eyes, sort of thing, right? That's kind of what you will think. That's what I'm doing. What my idea here is with my channel, my videos are to tell you analysis ahead of time, ahead of these events coming to fruition, so you can plan ahead of time and prepare. And arguably so, even though this is temporarily somewhat bullish, this can fade away very, very rapidly and become bearish, given how the bearish nature is starting to show through on our smaller time frame. So be very careful. Yes, it does not necessarily mean it's going to happen any second now, but at the same time we are at a place in the setup where any second now we can see the beginning of a major drawdown. It doesn't necessarily will be immediately drawing all the way to 6100. Of course, it's going to be, like I said, a very gradual step-by-step procedural kind of event, and it will last for quite a while. It will take potentially multiple weeks before we end up reaching that 61 handle. But here it is. I'm warning you again for arguably the last time, because guys, as you can tell, I still am struggling to make videos and talk, but I am doing a lot better. Thank you for those who were worried for me, and you know, all the messages and everything. Shout out to the community members, I appreciate it. And yeah, that's it, ladies and gents. That's kind of what we're looking at, although we still have some bullish momentum to have had purged throughout the following session or two. But generally speaking, we are now observing a buildup of bearish momentum, which is about to play out sometime soon. Sometime soon, we don't measure these things by time, but rather by events and processes. And once they're complete and give way to the following processes, believe it or not, the market tends to kind of have this balancing act of bullish, bearish, back and forth. All of that for the sake of retaining balance in the market. And so what we're seeing right now is basically that transition that I oftentimes refer to from a bullish directionality into more so sideways price action, which eventually ends up leading to a breakdown, and the breakdowns are rapid. So here it is. That's the warning. You can also see plenty of important technical levels right here on the chart. All of them are true and have been tested before and acknowledged and confirmed by myself, my community, and you can watch my previous videos to know how important all of them are. And yeah, I highly recommend taking the opportunity before I do change the prices, because all of them are right now currently discounted. Instead of, you know, having you guys deal with all sorts of promo codes and all that headache with the discounts, I simply kept the prices low so it will be easy for you. The Academy one-on-one sign up is not done through here, and especially if you want to get a proper discount. That's it, ladies and gents. That's all I have for you. I hope to see you in the community or in the next video. The link right there is patreon.com/Gregory underscore H, Greg underscore Ray underscore H. And yeah, you know what? I usually say, you know, like, subscribe, and all that crap. Of course, it's highly appreciated, but it's far more important that you actually pay attention to what I talk about and what I show, rather than all this nonsense. Love you all. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye for now.